Let me just. All right. Hello, everybody. We're just here with Soraya Saraswati. Hello. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Liv.
It's such a pleasure to have Soraya here. We've just had a little chat before we jumped on, and I'm just trying to see if I need to do anything with the, oh, that's right, the view. I want to pop it on the gallery. There we go. Yes, we've just had a nice little chat just to, meet each other and talk a little bit about this topic, exploring grief. And I really feel so honoured that Soraya is sharing her experience and her wisdom on this topic with all of you. It's very much needed, and I know that she's just going to have so much to offer. So thank you so much. Soraya is a tremor, and so it's tension and trauma release therapist.
Yeah, TRE.
TRE therapist. She is also a yoga therapist and a naturopath. She's studied Ayurvedic wisdom or science, and also does yoga nidra and tapping. And you also have a little yoga retreat, I understand, here, or a centre at in Palmwoods. Did you want to tell us a little bit about your centre?
Yeah, we have Mangalam, which is a hectare here between Palmwoods and Montville. So we're just outside Palmwoods, off the old road. And here we offer quite a few different things. We're musicians. So my husband, Terry Oldfield, you might know some of his music. He has a very extensive catalogue of meditation music, and yeah, it's beautiful music. And we also do sacred music here. So we have a kirtan or a mantra meditation afternoon on a Sunday once a month. And I run TRE, I call it Shake It Off, TRE mindfulness and yoga nidra courses, helping people to understand their nervous system and deal with past trauma in a somatic way, so we don't actually have to go into any stories about trauma. We work through the body. And of course, my foundation is 40 years of yoga and working with yoga therapy. So bringing all that together with the TRE, that was sort of such a great, was a missing link really for me to help people to activate their bodies, get out of their heads, get out of their mind, and allow the body, this amazing, miraculous body, to unwind itself and release. So, and I also see clients here and offer my Awakening Hearts mentorship.
Yes, I did. I didn't get the chance to have a look. Would you like to share a little bit about the Awakening Hearts mentorship just before we kind of go into our grief discussion?
Yeah, the Awakening Hearts mentorship I'm just observing clients, observing people wanting to transform. I mean, everybody who's a little awake feels at the moment this deep call, for us to open our hearts. And we see that the world and the politics of the countries, it's not serving the people.
No.
It's not coming from a place of inclusivity and love. It's not coming from a place of truth and authenticity. And I believe that, the power does lie with the people. And if enough of us awaken and really, truly live from the heart, which means healing, deep, profound healing, so that we can go beyond the mind, the manamaya kosha, the mind body, so that our body can be this beautiful, clear vehicle, so that our prana, our energy can flow beautifully. And then we become conduits of peace,
Mm.
conduits of love. So I had noticed that people would come and they're really sincerely wanting to transform. They'd do a course or some classes or some private sessions, but very often they'd very quickly fall back into their old habits again. So I decided to put together this 6-month mentorship, which is a lot, but it is total support for 6 months. That starts with a 3-day retreat here at Mangalam. And then we go into weekly classes that can be taken online as well. And they'll all be recorded, and you'll have access to those, so that if you miss a class, you can go back and do that in your own time. And then it also includes so many personal sessions with me, and we'll be, working with a diary through our self-work. There's a lot of, it's a deep commitment to yourself. So there's a lot of self-work for each person that attends. Nobody can heal us. We need to do that for ourselves. But what we, as you would know, Liv, what we as facilitators do is we facilitate that. We hold space for that, and we give pointings. We offer information and understanding, deep understanding, to help support that journey to healing. And then we end with another three-day retreat. There's so much in this 6 months. It's huge.
Yeah, and the reality is you to make that that change that's going to really take effect and sort of permeate into every layer of your being. That is the level of commitment that one would need to, when they're really serious about making that lifestyle change, because it does take quite a lot to unravel, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of habit and patterns, and
it's all about deletion, deleting those programs that we're running in a subconscious realm. But yes, no, you're absolutely right. And it won't be a big group. I'm not expecting a big group. We've already got a small number of people that are really 100% committed. But that means that we can go deeper. That means that we can really, really go deeper together with so much honesty and integrity, and ultimately go into the space of non-duality, where we melt into all as one.
We'll break down all those what do I call it? I've used the term. It's a very simple term. That illusion of separation, and
I call it dropping the veils. We're veiled. There's so many different veils covering us and colouring our perception of what we call reality. It's just really seeing through those veils so that they just drop. And of course, the golden key of awareness, as you would know, is magical in doing that.
Wow, it sounds amazing, and it's so much needed. And so it's wonderful to know that there's those programs are available right here in the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, and of course, thanks to technology, you're not limited to that. So I think that's a really good segue to talk about how grief, when we have grief, how it may and I'm trying to make sure I articulate the right words here, but what can, when we've sort of got grief stuck within us, what does it do to the heart, and how can it, what role does grief play in that sort of spiritual awakening process?
Well, first of all, what I'd like to say is it is natural for us to grieve. And it's uncomfortable to grieve, and it hurts, and it can be painful. And it's a deep and profound and very personal journey as well.
Mm.
Very personal. And we can never compare one person's experience of grief with another person's experience of grief, like trauma.
Mm.
Grief can be a really healthy thing, but grief that goes on and on and on and ultimately gets stuck and is not met and then melted
Mm.
can really often affect our physiology.
Mm.
So, whether that affects our lungs, whether that affects our heart, a broken heart is
Mm.
often due to grief. And so it may make someone more vulnerable to heart attacks and heart problems.
Mm.
We could talk a lot about the polyvagal theory here and the
Mm.
vagus nerve, and I could go into the science of it. But purely from an energetic level, our heart chakra is really the connection between the lower three chakras and the upper chakras.
Mm. Mm.
And if we want to journey into these higher realms, then our heart needs to be resonating at a vibration of love and peace. And then the journey becomes easy. So very often, it used to be, many, many years ago, that everyone was really stuck in the lower three chakras. It's almost like now it's time for humanity to sit in the heart.
Mm.
And grief acknowledged is important, because very often, sometimes grief can be, like me, I got smacked in the face with it when my brother died by suicide, and then my 17-year-old son died by suicide 3 years later to the day. It was like, oh my God, I had to go deeply into that. It was calling me to go on that journey of grief.
Yeah,
But
that.
everyone's experience is very, very different.
Mm.
One thing I would say is open to grief, let it in. And I feel so blessed that I had the foundational training that I got through my years of training and living in a yoga ashram, and being able to sit with presence, with discomfort, with pain, with I would often cry myself to sleep every
Mm.
night
Mm.
during that period, and just allowing that to be there,
Mm.
allowing that to ultimately wash me clean. And one of the terms I coined, which I write about, actually I wrote my story in this book, which is Shining Through from Grief to Gratitude. But one of the things that was profound for me was, and it seems so simple now, but of course, whenever we have these epiphanies, they were like light bulbs. And this was a long time ago. But it was resistance to presence creates chaos and pain.
Mm.
So initially, because it happens so suddenly, when the loss of someone or something is so sudden, and that could be a marriage, that could be an animal, a furry friend, a horse, it could be your partner, it could be your child. But when something like that happens so suddenly, the cognition of it, it's like,
Mm.
is this real? Is this really happening? And everything inside of you wants to fight against, no, this isn't happening.
The
So
resistance.
that first stage for me was going, this is happening. Sadly, I had to make the choice of taking my son off life support after a period of time where there was no brain cognition. And that gave me time, as I sat with him in his dying, to go, I want to be here for every single moment, every breath that he takes, until he takes his last breath. I need to be here 100%. So it was like, pulling everything into that.
Mm.
So just being able to be with the grief and be present for the arising feelings is huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge.
I imagine that the avoidance and resistance to feeling the grief would just only delay the healing, you know, and then
And that's okay. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes we just can't go there. It's just
yeah,
too raw, too soon. And
yeah,
sometimes we just need to, you know, shut ourselves away. I did that for a period after
yeah.
he passed. You know, I came home, just pulled the blinds, and I don't want to see anyone, you know.
Mm, mm,
But I think again, they just, it's, you know, I work a lot with trauma now and helping people through trauma. And there's no comparison with one person's trauma and another, one person's
mm,
grief and way to grieve and another. I
mm,
mean, some people would be familiar with, you know, the stages of grief, and that's all been systematically written down. And throw those books out the window.
mm,
Your grief journey is your grief journey, and
mm,
yes, you will feel angry sometimes. Yes, you will feel numbed out and shut down at other times. Our nervous system responds to that shock by going into, you know, either sympathetic or into dorsal vagal, where we've got
mm,
parasympathetic and sympathetic switched on at the same time and we're shutting down. It's just there comes a time, there's a healthy, okay, it's a healthy time to grieve, but when we push it all down, and that goes on and on and on for months or maybe years,
mm,
and then we're living with that, uh, our vibration is lowered.
mm,
You're probably familiar with the scale of emotional resonance, and grief is right down the bottom. So
mm,
if grief is held in for a long period of time, there will be physiological illness in the
change.
body. The
Mm,
anamaya kosha will be influenced by that and
mm,
start to suffer. And often it's only when the physical body starts to suffer that, you know, people start to question, oh, why is this happening? You know, but from a medical intuitive point of view, it's the energy that's
mm,
pushed down
mm.
and held that starts and initiates
It
that
just goes to,
physiological change.
yeah, it just goes to show the immense power that, you know, the emotions play in our body, you know,
Absolutely.
and you know, and many of the people that are in this group, I've done quite a few posts and talks about, you know, the different sort of vibrational levels of emotions and the chakras and yeah, it's very, very fascinating. And it's quite interesting because you know, so for some people they might not even if they go through the sort of traumatic experience of loss, and then it may take some years for those tangible physical manifestations of that grief to emerge. And in some cases, people might not even join the dots of how of well that this is
Absolutely.
grief trapped in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there, I know, you know, the people talk about, you know, for myself, we spoke just before we got on about my own journey of, you know, sort of having a lung condition.
Mm.
And so would you say in your experience working with people, is it predominantly, say, the heart and the lungs, or are there other areas in the body where it can um, present?
Well, as you would know, Liv, because you shared with me that you've done a deep study on the chakras. Well, for a start, the arms, the hands, you know, they're
Mhm.
extensions of the heart, and the thoracic spine, shoulder blades, the shoulders, you know, often, you know, you'll notice the posture will change. There'll be a hunch, there'll be a protection of the heart happening. But we can never isolate one chakra from another, because
No. Mhm.
if there's deep held grief here, depending on how that grief is manifesting, it may manifest as resentment. It may manifest
Mhm.
as unresolved blame. You know, so we're
Mhm.
living with unforgiveness.
Mm.
There might be huge fiery anger. So then the liver, where are we? The right side. The liver's going to get activated, you know, and there'll be liver issues that may occur. And of course, flowing up to the throat chakra to be able to articulate your needs while you're grieving is very, very difficult. Because very often, you know, Agnya chakra is just in a fog and you feel disconnected from spirit. You know, you don't feel that connection. And very often you're knocked off your feet. So you haven't got Muladhara flowing either. So you're not grounded. You feel like you've been kicked in the guts. So, you know, all your boundaries have been exploded. So Manipur's not working. You may not be able to digest your food during, this is particularly straight after, you know, a loss of some sort. So everything gets affected. And of course, then Swadistan's going to be affected because your relationships will be affected. You may be blaming someone. Maybe saying, you may be just doing self-blame. Why wasn't I there? If I'd been there, if I'd made different choices, different things would have happened. It's all my fault. Self-flagellation is really, really common in grief as well. And after a while, if all this is going on and there's no outlet for it, no release for it, it starts to lock into the body and lock deep, deep, deep. It sinks into the subconscious realm. So even though physically we may look like we've moved on in our life, there might be a deep subconscious belief of it's all my fault, you know, or if only I'd been there, or that bastard, you know, could be anger and unforgiveness. Well, that, you know, unforgiveness is going to hold us stuck. And these are all, you know, it's easy to talk about these, but these are deep. This is deep work. And this takes enormous courage and sensitivity and allowing us to feel things that are not comfortable. But once we open that lid and allow our feelings out and shine the light of awareness on it with, and this is the caveat here, with self-compassion, with loving kindness, you know, with sensitivity toward ourselves, giving ourselves the time and space for that. So important.
And it makes me think of even, you know, some of the, you know, Aboriginal wisdom and the traditional, you know, owners. They, you know, often they make reference to, you know, I don't know if you've heard of Dadiri, the script.
Absolutely.
You know, and so it's like that. It's just born into them to be present. And so when they need to grieve, they grieve. The allowing is already there. And I think so much in our society, we've just been quite conditioned, and society is set up to tell us to just soldier on. And so we just, you know, that resistance is there. So
and for anyone in my age group, they'd remember, you know, Codral flu and what was it, flu tablets or something. I haven't watched TV for years, but it was always, you know, soldier on, and pop a tablet. You know?
I know. I
it all up.
I was actually having a little giggle thinking about that ad, you know, about 6 months ago, thinking, well, they can't really air that ad anymore because it's not okay to soldier on anymore.
No, now it should be probably stay at home.
Another thing that you touched on there was that linear approach to grief, and I've got you know, Brené Brown's, I love her book, Atlas of the Heart, and so I've got it open here on the grief, and I think she mentions how, you know, I think in previously there was a very linear approach to grief. However, we now know that it's a very, very multidimensional. And I just think that's interesting because, you know, if we think of the heart as like this portal, and we know that the heart is multidimensional by nature, So it makes perfect sense that we approach our grieving from with this multi-dimensional way
Yeah, yeah,
of looking at it, rather than a linear sort of, it's
yeah,
going to happen this. And again, this is why it's each individual person has their own very unique way of
absolutely.
processing and moving through and
Yeah,
allowing.
yeah,
One thing that I've read is that you don't even necessarily have to have the end goal of wanting to heal and get rid of your grief, but rather it's learning to live with it. What's your thoughts on that?
yeah. And again, there's so many different approaches. And I think when you're going through a grieving process, especially a fresh grieving process, you are not thinking about, oh, I've got to heal from this.
Mm, mm,
You are in it. You are under the water with it.
yeah.
You are in your feeling body and you are experiencing that grief. There's no thought of wanting to heal from it. Either that, or in our society, particularly uh, my age and beyond, it was very much for a man to, oh, I've got to look after the family, so I'll just push that down and be the strong one, be the man here, and look after everybody else. I've worked with quite a lot of men that have done that, but also in this modern day, single mums. I
Mm,
was a single mum as well,
yeah.
raising sons without a father, which was very challenging. So, so I really think, again, we can't. Um, there's no one way. We're not
Mm,
just
mm,
focused on healing. It's important to grieve. In all the ancient cultures, when someone in the tribe died, they would all wail for them, and
mm,
wailing. What a beautiful thing that your tribe will wail with you and grieve with
mm,
you the loss of that person from the community.
yeah.
That's such a beautiful thing. With with what we've been through here in Australia, and obviously I'm fairly aware of the suicide rates. That used to be 13 people every day in Australia dying by suicide, but now that's just gone through the roof.
I'd hate to imagine what.
And a lot of that is due to the lockdowns and young people not being able to see a way forward in their life
Mm,
because of a lot of the doomsday stuff that's been um, pushing them down, and the politics, which is fear based to manipulate and control. The suicide rate has really increased, and
mm,
around suicide, there's also this whole feeling of shame. Oh my God, my child, my brother, my family, we've had suicide. So rather than the tribe coming in
mm,
to
mm,
support someone in their grief, and I experienced this myself, was people just wouldn't call you. They didn't know what
mm,
to say. They didn't know how to respond. Now, this was quite a long time ago now. It's yeah, 15 years this year. But people just did not know how to respond, so they wouldn't say anything. So
yeah.
then that, for some people, can leave them feeling alone, even more isolated.
Mm,
People crossing the road and walking across the other side of the road when they pass someone they know because they don't know what to say.
mm,
The thing is, you can't say anything wrong if you're just coming from your heart.
yeah,
But
exactly.
just to acknowledge someone's loss is a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
yeah, it,
I feel your pain. I'm so sorry. I'm sending you love, whatever. But
mm,
just like in those old times where the tribe would wail together and
mm,
some of the family would cut their hair as a recognition of that loss,
mm,
and allow it out rather than denying, feeling guilty. Very much around suicide, parents often feel like they've failed. Oh, why didn't I ring them on that day?
yeah. Gosh, it must be a very intense journey.
It's for a lot of people, an increasing number of people, and it's not an easy journey, which is why I wrote my book, because
Yeah.
I wrote it for my son,
Yeah.
because he always wanted to help people, so he is through that.
I think that the acknowledgement is quite key here in, you know, that how we can, you know, perhaps start to infuse this shift in society. And I suppose once we learn to, when we awaken the heart, you know, that acknowledgement will, when we come into the presence of someone that is in that sort of grieving stage, I think that hopefully that acknowledgement will flow a little
Well,
bit
it's
with a bit more freedom
yeah,
from the heart.
it's something I often use is, just wondering if I've got one here. I think they're in my other space, but you know, just getting two singing bowls of the same note.
Yeah.
And if you play one singing bowl here that's a C, it'll resonate with the C over here. So if the heart is open and over here, then that can help to resonate, to lift the resonance of the heart chakra in the person that you're holding space with. So
Yeah.
everything comes back to energy, really, doesn't it?
Oh.
And understanding that if there's grief here, there's grief, you know, globally. There's humanity is grieving at the moment, you know, and so this is a key time of a global shift of the whole of humanity. And once humanity is sitting in the heart and is heart-based, then I think there'll be a shift of global consciousness, and the whole world will change and resonate with that shift in resonance.
Yeah.
But we need enough people, you know, we need enough people with their hearts, you know, open
And so really,
not I just want to make a little caveat there too, not to be pseudo loving, if you know what I mean. I'm not talking pink fluffies here. I'm not talking, you know, oh, everything's, you know, sunshine and roses, but a really authentic, genuine, deep understanding, kindness, compassion, sensitivity.
Actually, I was just talking with my friend. It makes me think of this morning. I was talking with my friend that about that phrase, "I see you," and I think it was in Avatar, but and also, you know, Namaste. I think of Namaste as another way. It's like the light in me sees the light in you, and in those moments, we are one. And so we broke down, and this is when we live in the heart. And so I think that's a really beautiful way to, you know, if someone's in grief, to just be with them.
Have you heard our recording of Namaste that says exactly that?
Oh, really?
I'll send you a link, Liv.
Oh, we'll share it into the group. Is it? Oh, that sounds wonderful. I love it. It just extends my heart so much.
I know. It's like I sat with my husband. Oh, we've got to write a song. We've got to write Namaste, and he's an amazing composer and tunesmith, and came up with the words, and he came up with a beautiful tune. And yeah, we've sung that all over the world. In fact, we have an album called Namaste, and people always ask for that one, and it's I see you, you see me, I am you, you are me.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So that's probably such a beautiful way just to even be with someone when they're grieving, and to even to yourself, you know. It's like the witness, the inner witness, when we're in that moment with grief, in whichever way that's been thrust upon us in this crazy life. Yeah.
Well, if we can't, you know, sit in our own heart space with our own feelings, then we won't be able to do that for others.
It's interesting. I did see on your website that I think there was that you'd had this deep spiritual journey with grief, and so would you say that grief, it's almost like we sort of, when we need to alchemize or transform or sort of lift the consciousness a little bit more, that we need to sort of shine that light of consciousness or conscious awareness on those darker aspects of the self. And so perhaps because we're dealing with the heart, that the grief presents as this opportunity for us to shine our light of conscious awareness and to move through it and move into more expansion in the heart.
Yeah. And grief isn't it's very, very common, but it's not everyone's Achilles heel, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever's there for us, whatever patterns we're running, whatever programs we're running, ultimately, if we're going to melt into the oneness of all that is and realize that I am you, you are me, that there's only one of us here ultimately, but we have a physical body, and this is as real as it gets in the material plane. But energetically, there is a oneness here. And if there's grief here, there's grief in humanity. I think wherever our programs are not serving love, not serving peace, that's where we need to shine the light of awareness. And grief is a huge one, particularly during the last couple of years, when so many people have left the planet, and we've got this crazy new thing called what is it now?
The SARS.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Death syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, questionable. Hugely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fear all around that as well, because people may have made choices in the past that they may not make now with the awareness that they have now. But it's also an opportunity for us to again go into self-forgiveness, self-love, and be with what is, and shine that light wherever it is, with the choices we've made, with what vision we have now. We can only be where we are in this now moment, because, as you know, the future doesn't exist, the past doesn't exist. It's always and only now. So that's all that matters. And if we can bring all our energy and awareness into the now, which is always now, and which means in this now moment, there's always an opportunity for clearing.
Wow, so powerful. I was thinking that so you do the TRE, and would you say that that's one of the most powerful tools that you have used to help shift?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think talk therapy has its place, that having worked, I don't work as a naturopath anymore, but I worked as a naturopath for 20 years. So obviously we did naturopathic psychology and with yoga therapy and everything as well. And that has its place. But what I find is people get stuck in their head.
Yeah.
They can't step off the mind train. They're looping round and round on the tracks.
Yeah.
When I say step off, come onto the neutral platform, see what's happening here, and you'll slip in the doo-doo again. You'll jump back on the train, but every single time you notice you're there, drop it, drop it, drop it, step off, step off, step off. The beautiful thing about TRE is it's not a top-down therapy like talk therapy and many, many different therapies that are focused in using our intelligence. It's a bottom-up therapy. So it's working with your nervous system, it's working with your physiology, your body, and it's not working with the ego. So all the stories, we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
We don't need to analyze what's happening. We need to feel what's happening. So it's very much heart-based practice. And we work with compassion, loving kindness, no judgment. So we bring that mindfulness aspect. I call it beyond mindfulness, really.
Yeah. So for someone that's never really heard of TRE, what would, and if they're in a state of grief in some way, what could they expect if they,
Okay, so TRE activates the natural tremor response, which exists in all mammals, actually. And you'll probably notice if there's a thunderstorm or something coming over your dog or your cat will start to tremor. And that's a neurogenic tremor. And that neurogenic tremor, what it's doing is the fear of the thunderstorm and the lightning is sending out, activating the sympathetic nervous system. So it's sending out adrenaline, cortisol, and that's why very often dogs run away and they get caught in a thunderstorm, because they just want to run. That adrenaline is pumping through the system. Or they might be trembling and they might then go into a parasympathetic with sympathetic switched on. So they go into what we call, it's that shutdown where they're hiding underneath the table or something and tremoring.
Yeah.
The tremoring is the nervous system trying to deal with the shock. Okay. And our children do this in schools. I think the polyvagal theory should be taught in every school. I think everyone should understand the nervous system and everyone should have access to this practice, because it can very quickly release the adrenaline and the cortisol from the system and down-regulate you from that high state of shutdown, from the sympathetic state of activation, and right back down to regulation. So yeah, I teach people about their nervous system and the polyvagal theory, and then we take that in understanding into some simple movements which activate the tremor response, and then your body releases old held tension. It's quite amazing, and all we have to do is stay present in our body and feel what's happening. So it's once learned, and I run a 6-week course on that, or it's also in all my mentorships. I add this in as well. We start to see things change in our life, because even though we might become aware of a pattern we're running in our head, we may not be able to release it from our physiology. But this can do that through that somatic experiencing.
Yeah, I often think of, I often refer to the threads of tension. We just, and it can be, kind of caused from a thought, but it could be caused from, like a physical, the way we've held our body, might cause a tensioning. And yeah, it's really fascinating to these practices. I have done a little bit of it when I studied the chakras with Anadia Judith, just online from the States. But it is very, very interesting. And for people that may not be aware, when we have many traumatic experiences, and including grief, can quite simply become trapped in the body. So so something like TRE is a very effective way for us to release that, like you say, without having to go into, it might be too hard to talk.
Well, the other thing is, very often we don't know what it's related to.
Yeah.
It's subconscious.
Yeah.
We don't have, when you think that we only have access to 15 to 20% of what's creating our reality, 90 to 95% of what's creating our reality is subconscious. We don't have access to that. And we're trying to control our lives, which is insane. And we're trying to do that with, 15 to 20% of conscious activation. And trauma can be, it can be mental, it can be emotional, and it can be physical. And each one of those traumas can be different. And some of those may have happened when we were a baby or in utero. We can't remember that. We don't need to remember that, but we can release the imprint of that from our body and from our physiology. So it's beautiful, it's powerful. I watch these bodies unwind, and I'm in awe of I'm fascinated by it, and it's been a wonderful privilege for me to facilitate TRE and facilitate bodies to unwind and support that process. I feel deeply, deeply honoured.
Oh, it's so much needed, all of this work. So I was even thinking that even the kirtan, the singing.
Oh, great. Yeah. And because it's
incredibly,
toning the vagal nerve as well,
yeah,
singing and chanting. And that's something I do regularly. I love to sing, and I love to encourage other people to
yeah,
sing.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sing, sing, sing in the shower, sing in the car, sing.
No, it's wonderful. Is there anything that you still feel like you'd like to share, or?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground there, Liv.
I think there's been a lot of value for people that might have had grief show up them, and quite intense grief as well. I think.
I guess I'd just say, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Gentle with yourself. Take away expectations. No need to push through. Let yourself fall apart sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah.
You are a child of the universe. And just as we would love our children in the same way, the divine wants children of the universe to be loved, to be held, to be acknowledged. So do that for yourself first. Our first marriage is to ourselves.
Yes, and then I suppose we mirror, what we have within is what we mirror without, on the outside. So the minute that we acknowledge it within ourselves, then we'll start to draw that acknowledgement from around us as well. So yeah.
But not to look for that. Not to look.
Yeah,
just
again,
to ourselves first. Everything else will unfold just beautifully and perfectly if we can love ourselves enough.
Yeah, it makes me even think, even wanting to do this, this, open up this discussion, there was initially a little bit of fear, and then ultimately it was it was the self-love and compassion to myself that softened that expectation and allowed me to proceed forth with doing this. So it is very powerful. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
What a blessing to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful experience and wisdom with everybody. Now,
just to remind each and everyone, if anyone watches this, acknowledge your wisdom too. Acknowledge how far you've come. Really, never put anyone else on a pedestal. You are the divine.
Yes, beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much, and I'll make sure that your details are popped in when I post this. So if people do feel that there's something that spoke to them, that they resonate with, by all means they can reach out. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I do have books here, so don't go to Amazon.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Yes. We'll follow that. We'll watch that space if anybody comes forth, and I'll pop that in the post as well. I'll make sure the link to that.
And I think I've even got a PDF for just a few dollars on my website as well. But yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's been a lovely connection, Liv. Very unexpected and beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.